somehow she doubles down on the fucking stupidity by claiming that this standing military, one of the largest standing militaries on the planet, the NYPD, with its own submarine, that's like what, $6.3 billion a year in budget, that is in every fucking subway station, is not there, actually. And it's not even that yet. The National Guard is in the subway, too, on top of the fucking police. The mayor is a cop. That's how fucking police-minded New York City is. They fucking elected a cop mayor. I'm going to move on to Daniel Penny. And if there are more updates, I will go into that. Okay, I will go into more updates on the alleged shooter. But let's now talk about another a murder that happened in broad daylight in a New York City subway station. Daniel Penny choked and killed a homeless victim that was experiencing a mental health episode in front of a bunch of other people. And as of today, he has been acquitted.
Death of Jordan Neely on a New York City subway last year was found not guilty of criminally negligent homicide by a Manhattan jury on Monday. This comes after a judge dismissed a more serious second-degree manslaughter charge last week after the jury could not come to a verdict on the count they were hung. Gloria Pazmino, tell us the latest.
Well, we are getting a live reaction right from inside that courtroom. My colleague Lauren Del Valle has been sitting there as the verdict was read. A not guilty, visible smiles from Daniel Penny, who has just been acquitted on that second charge, the criminally negligent homicide. At the same time, the father of Jordan Neely, the victim in this case, escorted out of the room after he had an outburst with an expletive inside that courtroom as the verdict was being read. Court officers stepping in to escort Mr. Zachary Carter out of the room.
Why are they showing this,
Andrew
man?
Zachary, that's his name, I should say. We are also hearing audible reaction directly in the park behind me. Protesters have been here all morning. And they are now starting to chant loudly in response to this verdict. Today,
CNN is so gross. Like, it's just, dude, in the lightest terms, it's just like a straightforward lynching. And CNN is like, remember that lynching that took place? The person who did it, he can now walk free and do it again if he wants to. Just a somber reminder of how things actually work. I wonder if the right-wingers who were chirping about the right-wingers who were chirping about the Luigi guy who shot and killed the CEO, if they have a similar attitude towards protecting life and the sanctity of life with respect to Daniel Penny, who, choked and killed a homeless person. Of course they don't. Because if you're powerless and you get killed, are you asking them not to report on the facts of the situation, though? Really? Is that what you think I'm doing? You think replaying a lynching is actually important enough in this process? You think it takes away? You think me saying like, why are you even showing this footage again? Is actually that's your takeaway from that? It's the same principle behind like the execution of George Floyd as well. The media consistently kept playing it over and over and over again. I think it's ridiculous. I'm not saying that they shouldn't report on the facts of the matter, but they don't have to be so graphic with the imagery. Oh, so they're going to say that the blue city of New York City let him free means it's even more clear he did nothing wrong? I assume.
Today, for the first time in the past 6 weeks since we've been here, Daniel Penny also had some supporters in this crowd, but now we are hearing the chanting. In fact, it was something that his defense attorney tried to declare, ask for a mistrial on this morning because of the presence of loud supporters, which he believed could be heard by the jury inside the courtroom as they were deliberating. They are chanting, "No justice, no peace," which can be heard from inside that courtroom, according to my colleague Lauren Del Valle. So for now, 6 weeks after the fact, Daniel Penny acquitted on the second charge, criminally negligent homicide. Days after this jury initially told this judge that they were hung on the top charge, the manslaughter and the second-degree charge, the most serious of the two. The DA moved to dismiss that charge after the jury said they couldn't come to an agreement, and after the judge agreed to dismiss the
CNN didn't show the security footage of the CEO getting shot. They stopped the footage before the first shot was fired. Yeah. I mean, but that's a CEO. That's an important person. That's like an actual human. And not just like any human. That is one of the most important humans. Oh, here. He is one of those dudes. They got the wrong guy. Let him go. Please release him. Very clearly, broad as day. You can tell that's not him, man. Just let him go. I think you got the wrong guy. It's not him. It's just not him. Yeah.
charge. He instructed the jury to go back into the deliberation room this morning and continue to deliberate. And now, just about an hour and a half after they started deliberating for the day, we are hearing back that verdict. Daniel Penny not guilty of the criminally negligent homicide charge nearly a year after he placed Jordan Neely, a homeless street artist, in a fatal chokehold in a New York City subway.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say it's worth just reemphasizing.
Law tip: New York's Defense of Others statute gives a person the authority to use physical force, and even in some other cases, deadly physical force to protect themselves and also to protect others from physical assault. There was ample testimony that witnesses feared imminent bodily harm. All this fear needs to be as reasonable under the circumstances, which it seemingly was. That's why he was acquitted. Yeah, I still think it's a terrifying precedent that it is setting, because ultimately, reasonable fear in this circumstance is like any black person that is homeless, that is having a mental health episode, is now, is now under consideration as an imminent threat, a reasonable fear, so they could just be assassinated. Great stuff. Anyway. I just don't. How did he not pose a threat? Brother, you being afraid of a dude who is like going through it and then watching someone choke them and kill them is on entirely different planets, okay? Entirely different planes of existence. Like, the conversation here isn't literally, oh no, let him like threaten someone or let him terrify someone. Okay, that's not the point I'm making at all. A lot of people will look at that and go, well, Hasan, seems like you just want people to smoke crack on the subway. I'm not one of those leftists. Okay, I'm not saying like, oh, it's just a little bit of crack. Who gives a shit? Like, I understand why there is a there is a frustration there. Okay. By the way, I'm not saying that that's what Jordan Neely was doing. I'm simply stating that there is like a very common trope online of people who are like, oh, it's just a little bit of crack. Let somebody do crack. So if the shooter put the CEOs in chokeholds, he would get away with it? No. Because while the CEO in that circumstance has a lot more kills under his belt, the reality of the matter is society does not view the CEO as someone engaging in an act of killing at all, because the murder in that circumstance is socialized, social. Whereas a scary homeless person exhibiting a mental health episode, that is way scarier than a guy who was serialized and systematized the process of murder by way of seeking out profit more and more, better profit margins year over year by simply killing people, by denying their coverage, by relegating them to medical bankruptcy, a life of medical debt. That's just the way we interpret it. That's it. Anyway, yeah, the drug addict is not seen as a not human, and therefore it is not his purification and cleansing. Yeah. That is the unfortunate reality of the way that we interpret homeless people in this country. Homeless people automatically considered drug addicts. Whether they are or not doesn't matter. They're automatically seen as criminals. Whether they are or not doesn't matter. That's just the way that we interpret homeless people, as an aberration that must be excised violently. And in this circumstance, Daniel Penny did just that, and he was not punished for that. This means that our legal system will show, even in a place as blue as New York City, that, yeah, if you kill a homeless person that is like very clearly exhibiting mental health crisis, there is no mechanism of apprehension there that is more meaningful, trying to engage in de-escalation or trying to even examine why this person got to this point that they're in. Jordan Neely specifically got to this point that they're in. No, it's the attitude that we have is basically, no, you just gotta kill him. You gotta remove him. You gotta cleanse this area. I think it's ridiculous that this can be seen as like a reasonable level of force and a reasonable level of restraint that was demonstrated, and not just like Daniel Penny doesn't have to be this like white supremacist that was trying to get a fucking confirmed illegal by killing a black person. Okay, he could have still in that very moment thought, oh, this guy is a threat to other people. I want to stop him from being a threat to other people. Okay? But what he did in that process led to the death of Jordan Neely. So obviously there has to be, if society has laws and order and a criminal justice system, like you reward certain behavior, you consider certain behavior to be permissible, and you punish certain behavior. And in this circumstance, in my opinion, this was behavior that was worthy of some semblance of punishment so that people don't think that they can take matters in their own hands in a similar fashion. Okay?
Emphasizing the fact that this was a hung jury on the most serious charge, the second-degree manslaughter, and that was dismissed last week. And the jury of 12 coming out today and acquitting him of the lesser charge of criminally negligent homicide. Have we heard from Daniel Penny's team?
Well, one thing I can tell you is that, you mentioned the jury. This is a jury made up of Manhattanites. I sat here watching jury selection before the trial was getting started, and I watched just how carefully every juror was being questioned and picked out. These are people who live here in Manhattan. They ride the subway nearly every day. Many of them talked about the fact that they had witnessed outbursts on the subway. Some said that they at times felt threatened by those outbursts, but others said that they weren't. They were also asked about their experiences with mental illness and homelessness. And what I think all of that encapsulates and really just paints a picture about the state of New York City and many of the...
Before people yell at me, I need you to understand something. I have a consistent principle on this, as do I on the healthcare CEO shooting. I don't believe that the solution to societal problems is by just popping healthcare CEOs. Okay. I believe that that is an important, I believe that that is an important anger and resentment that people feel that must be acknowledged in this circumstance. And the same goes for this execution as well. What Daniel Penny did was seen as appropriate by many people. Okay? That is terrifying. That is an important indicator. It is a terrifying indicator that people have given up on any semblance of structural solutions to this issue. At least with the health insurance CEO, we know that there is no legislative outlook that even resembles a path towards change. Like, there is neither party that actually presents any sort of change whatsoever. With this circumstance, people's solutions are not to re-examine the very same structural hurdles that place them significantly closer to being Jordan Neely than an Elon Musk. Because after all, every single person in this chat, myself included, regardless of my financial success, are far closer to being homeless than we are to being Elon Musk. Like, one, ironically enough, one bad medical situation, and you will find yourself on the streets. Okay? And the reality of the matter is, although that is the truth, many people do not see it that way. And they simply look at homeless people and go, oh, gross. Like, I already have all these societal pressures that I have to deal with. And now there's a weird person that it smells bad that is like around me and being a nuisance and maybe even behaving in a way that is scary. So how will that person be dealt with? Let us not look at the ways in which Jordan Neely's personal journey led him to be permanently in the crosshairs of the criminal justice system, in and out of jail over and over again, no future prospects whatsoever, and people still apply blanket statements like this. Look, is that the criminal with a record of 40 plus crimes? Do you know what those crimes were, brother? There's like, they pad the stats, right? Especially if you're poor. The point I'm trying to make is that you are closer to being him than you are to even, being the CEO of United Healthcare. Okay? His crime primarily is being poor. His crime is primarily being homeless. His crime is primarily being a victim of circumstance. His crimes are sleeping where he's not supposed to, fare evasion, shit like that, loitering. Okay? That's what's so frustrating. And you go, oh, well, he was threatening women and children with death. He was a mentally ill homeless person, dude. He was very obviously exhibiting a mental health episode. I'm not even saying that I don't even know the full details of or the veracity of this statement. But even if that is the case, you have to understand that, like, you can try to apprehend a person like this. You can try to talk down a person like this. Obviously, it shouldn't even get to that point. That person should not be, running around at the subway station, like, obviously going through this mental health episode. Okay? The issue is, there's two ways to fix this problem. You either randomly task people with the goal of going out and just executing people like Jordan Neely in the crowded subway carts. Okay? You either do that and you basically democratize this process and everyone takes matters in their own hands. Or you recognize that these people are victims of circumstance and try to solve it, and try to also ensure that there aren't more new homeless people being created every single day because they get priced out of the housing market. Okay. If you live in a big city, and I do, you have been in a situation now where you have been fearful of your safety in the presence of a homeless person. And no, that doesn't mean you saw a homeless guy and got scared. That means like a homeless person has threatened you. Okay. It happens literally every day. It has happened to me on numerous occasions. Now, of course, I'm a big dude. I'm a guy. I'm 6'4". I'm jacked. So the threat does not actually carry the same weight as like if you are a tinier person or have a hard time defending yourself. Like I understand that. I understand the very real fear that someone might exhibit in that moment. Okay. And my solution in that moment isn't even to say like, well, analyze the conditions and how this person got there. I'm not expecting you to do that. But even if there are methods of restraint or methods of talking someone down, talking to them as a human being and trying to de-escalate, those are the methods that should be applied. That's what I think. And not only do I expect that from police, I expect that from random people as well if push comes to shove. Okay?
Issues that the city is grappling with, mentally ill people, homelessness, public safety, and the perception of public safety, especially in the city subways. This was something that was really happening a lot at the time of the incident, and people continue to be concerned about. We are seeing that play out here by this jury.
If we would be allowed to kill people who threaten us with death, League of Legends would be empty. I know. It is kind of funny that people come to me and they're like, well, he's threatening death. What should people do? I don't know, man. As someone who I promise you receives way more death threats, credible death threats than you do on a daily basis, you do what I do, okay? You live your damn life. Shut the fuck up. This doesn't mean it's appropriate, okay? But you're not. I don't know why people just. You always think your solutions will be more effective over the communities you claim to advocate for is too respectable or generous at times than others. The takes are wrong, but your audience isn't educated enough to correct you. His crime was being black as well. You don't think race is an issue. What? His crime was being black as well, but you don't think race issues are real enough to be a primary source of issue that needs to be solved? Congratulations, chatter. You did it. You, my friend, you won woke of the day today. Congratulations. Really, James Smith, you have won woke of the day. Now, your crime, okay, your one friend who's too woke in the situation is coming at this conversation with the understanding that I do not consider Jordan Neely being black a very important part of this equation. Not only did you assume that I did not bring that up when I said that this was a lynching, okay, but also simultaneously you also moved on from me not bringing this up, even though of course it's a factor and I did bring it up. But also you then follow through with additional inferences that you made off the faulty premise. Okay, there were numerous occasions where I actually brought forward the victim's race and also how it factored in. You refused to understand that I did. But then you said the audience of 44,000 in here are too to correct me on this, or maybe they were just listening better than you were. But congratulations, you win woke of the day. You did it. You are the one friend who is too woke. Anyway,
All right, Gloria, thank you so much. I want to go to Joey Jackson now for some legal analysis. Joey, are you surprised by this? What's your reaction?
Yeah, Pamela, I'm not surprised by it. Certainly, we saw just last week that they were hung up on the reckless charge. That was the manslaughter charge that carried the 15 years. And I think that there were concerns as to why they were hung up. I think when you look at this, what does it tell us? First of all, we have to look at what criminally negligent homicide means. It means that the jury would conclude that he was negligent. That is, that he failed to perceive the risk that his activities could cause the death of Jordan Neely. However, I think that there are two issues that you look at that are critical. Number one, was it self-defense? Certainly, that's what the defense argued, that he, that is Jordan Neely, represented an immediate threat, and as a result of representing that immediate threat of death or serious physical injury, that restraining him in the way that he did was reasonable and appropriate. And so that was the one issue. I think the second issue was the dealing with causation. What does causation mean? It means that the prosecution had to establish that he caused, that is the defendant in this case, Mr. Perry, the death of Jordan Neely. And there was really dispute on the medical evidence. On the one hand, you had the prosecutor's medical examiner saying, in fact, it was the chokehold that caused it. On the other hand, you had the defense saying a number of things. Number one, that there wasn't sufficient pressure applied such that it could be the chokehold. Number two, that schizophrenia diagnosis, that the issue with the synthetic marijuana, et cetera, caused it. So I think there were plenty of issues for the jury to conclude that just beyond the reasonable doubt, either A, it was self-defense, and B, that he wasn't the cause. So those were two good reasons as to why they could acquit, and that's exactly what they did.
We need some black.
I don't understand because, like, didn't he choke him for 5 minutes straight? And he died. Like, how come every time a black person gets choked to death, it's always, every time a black person gets choked to death, the media's like, well, you know, there was drugs in his system. Like, people do drugs all the time. What are we talking about? The point is, if this was a rich person, if this was a white person, if this was a white rich person who had smoked synthetic marijuana and maybe had unexamined or undiagnosed schizophrenia, would society's approach to the subject matter be different? If it was a white man who was wealthy, dressed nice, having a mental health episode on a crowded subway station, and somebody choked them to death. Let's say a black man choked him to death. I don't believe that people would approach the situation in the same way. I don't. I think that they would. I think that he would get the book thrown at him. Look no further than what will happen to Luigi, our boy Luigi, and the way that he will be treated by the criminal justice system. You can be driven into homelessness by someone like Brian Thompson, then legally murdered by someone like Daniel Penny, while the money that could have saved you is spent on children in Gaza. This is Sol Khan. Yeah. The Waffle House shooter was literally a wealthy white, vape pot smoking, undiagnosed schizophrenic. I knew him as a teenager. He lived to see a trial. Yeah. My point is, I think personally that the standard for killing a human being, for taking another human being's life, should be unimaginably high. Unimaginably high for someone who is unimaginably high for someone who is of a police background, and even higher for like the random citizen, because the entire point is, I mean, just unimaginably high for both. The point is, you can't fucking let people get away with just like murking people, okay? You are setting a very dangerous precedent. You're like, no, it's open season. And the worst part about this is like deterrence, right? If your expectation is like, well, this creates a deterrence for people to act out on the subway stations, you think the motherfucker that's going through a mental health episode gives a shit about the legal precedent set forth by Daniel Penny? If he's going through a schizophrenic attack, he's gonna do it regardless. Like, that's not stopping people. You know what I mean? This is simply just giving you a reason, or this is just giving you a little bit of happiness in this moment, because you're like, oh, these criminal nuisances that are consistently around me on my daily commute will now be murdered sometimes, and the murderers will be able to get away with it. It's crazy. And then you have this guy, and I think this guy is also like, he's like a charlatan, right? This Hawk Newsom guy. Am I crazy? I feel like BLM is so, like, BLM as a institution is so fucking, so unimaginably busted. I don't know if it's the same guy, but like, guys, stop making jokes about Hawk Tua. Okay. It's just at this point in 2024, whenever I see someone who is like an organizer of Black Lives Matter openly say that they're an organizer of Black Lives Matter, it's almost always some dude who is like going to say some unhinged shit. This does not mean that they're actually this does not mean that they're actually a part of the Black Lives Matter movement in general. Oh, it is the guy who protested the restaurant that one time. BLM protest Planet New York restaurant where brawl over vaccination proof occurred. Yeah. BLM Greater New York. Yeah, Hawk Newsom, the co-founder and chairman of BLM Greater New York. Yeah, they're I think these guys are I don't think these guys are valid. Okay? Just letting you know before we start this process, before we go down this route and listen to what he has to say.
Black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they...
Oh, yeah. Sure, man. 2-minute preface to a 19-second clip. Yeah, dude. Yeah, this is how all black people are. They all want to do vigilante justice against random white people. Stop saying he's not wrong. You're a fucking idiot. Okay? Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut your bitch ass up. So many of these goddamn fucking morons in this community, as well as every other community, are the first to go the Black Hammer route. So many of you are so rudderless and so fucking dumb, so broken in the way that you approach society, that you are so susceptible to the likes of Black Hammer as an organization. Okay, your white privilege is showing. Shut the fuck up. White privilege is showing. Yeah, no, go join this fucking very clear Fed operation. God, I hate some of you motherfuckers so bad. You're so quick. You're so quick to just like grab onto the fucking bait. So susceptible. Ban this one. Black people have always been killed this way in this country. Has never stopped. You shut up. You are not black or connected to us to understand. Here, take a ban. All right. Woke of the day. You got it. No, go ahead, guys. Go ahead. You're right. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know anything. This guy, let's not look into his background at all. Let's not assume that Hasan knows anything more about this person and what they represent and how their entire goal is to say these sorts of eye-catching things in an effort to sometimes fundraise, but most importantly, to play a role of the angry black man that conservatives will play on the fucking Facebook orbit nonstop, endlessly. Okay? You're right. You're right, man. What do I know? I don't know anything. I don't know. You're right. I'm just my woke privileges speaking, sweetie.
They attempt to oppress us.
Right.
I'm tired.
We're devastated.
Folks like this would fall for Dr. Umar if they didn't know better. No, Dr. Umar wouldn't fucking. No, Dr. Umar is a. How Hawk Newsom went from failed politician to rogue BLM boss. Hawk Newsom, the activist who threatened bloodshed after a sit-down with Mayor-elect Eric Adams earlier this week, is a rogue militant and failed politician who likes to wear a bulletproof vest and chew on a fast cigar as he strolls through his Bronx neighborhood. Newsom's incendiary statements and criticism of the national Black Lives Matter movement have earned him international headlines, but also made him a pariah among leaders of the civil rights cause. And the IRS yanked his group's charitable status for failing to file financial reports, the Post has learned. Oh, wow. That's crazy. On Wednesday, when Adams, a former New York PD captain, Eric Adams, vowed to bring back the force's controversial anti-crime unit, which was disbanded after widespread anti-police protests last year, Newsom, 44, threatened total anarchy. There will be riots, he said, outside the Borough Hall in Brooklyn after their closed-door discussions. There will be fire and there will be bloodshed. Now, did that happen? No, of course it didn't fucking happen. Why did he say this? Not because he's a fucking organizer, but because he has a failed charity that he's using to make it, to enrich himself. And his entire purpose is a singular one, okay? His entire goal is to go out and say these insightful things, okay? With the hopes that he gets coverage from these right-wing dish rags like the New York Post that will then present black people that are community organizers actually tasked with dealing with gun violence in their neighborhoods or police brutality in their neighborhoods as the same as him. Someone with no interest in real solutions and instead someone who is, inciting violence. I didn't mean insightful. I said like incite, not like insight. I don't know how to describe it. It's not SIGHT. It's CITE. Incitement. Okay? Incisive. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Incendiary. Yeah. Newsom followed up with the threats of the social media post on Thursday while waiting for a flight at JFK Airport. Mayor-elect Adams want to bring back the NYPD anti-crime unit that murdered Sean Bell, Amadou Diallo, and Eric Garner. Newsom said in the post with his 29,000 Instagram followers, referring to some New York City victims of police violence. We can't let that slide. You and I both know we are up against an evil and violent system. The imposing former paralegal for the Bronx DA, who stands more than 6'6" tall and weighs 250 pounds, now runs a political consulting company with his younger sister, Shavonna Newsom. In 2016, the two also founded New York Black Lives Matter, Inc., a charity which lists its address as a Bronx apartment. The nonprofit had its charitable status revoked 2 years ago after it failed to file financial reports to the IRS over 3 consecutive years, public records show. But the group continues to seek donations on its website, instructing visitors to donate through the one-time payments or monthly sums using PayPal or debit cards. The group sells sweatshirts with the BLM New York logo, and Donald Trump is a white supremacist, noting that buying them is the best way to support our organization. Newsom, whose birth name is Walter, has never been a member of the Black Lives Matter Global Network, the national arm of the movement, which has no time for his brand of self-style leadership. Also, the Black Lives Matter Global Network is not great either, but that's a totally separate point. Oh my God. Meanwhile, Newsom has rallied against the Global Network's leadership, blasting former co-founder Patrice Khan Killors. After the post revealed in April, she went on a real estate shopping spree, snagging 4 high-end incomes in the U.S., high-end homes in the U.S. for $3.2 million. If you go around calling yourself a socialist, you have to ask how much of our own personal money is going to charitable causes, he told the Post. It's literally 2 grifters, both using Black Lives Matter to benefit their own personal to benefit their own personal coffers. Okay? That's it. They're both grifters. Newsom, a high school dropout who has spoken openly about his battles with alcoholism, domestic abuse, and anger issues, managed to obtain his GED and attended Concordia College in Bronxville before completing his law degree in Touro College. He's the father of William, a teenager who lives with him, and has a 4-year-old daughter, Asada. We don't want white people coming in and raising our rents, he told the Post last year about the neighborhood near Yankee Stadium in South Bronx. You can't be a supporter of black people if you come gentrify the neighborhood. Stay the fuck out of our community. Newsom has worked as a community organizer in the Bronx and ran for a city council seat in the borough in 2013. He managed only 3% of the vote in the race, losing to Vanessa Gibson, the current city council member for West Bronx. His sister lost her own bid for the 15th congressional district in the 2020 primary. After Newsom's own loss at the polls, he changed his name to Hawk and began protesting against the police after the acquittal of George Zimmerman in the shooting death of Trayvon Martin in Florida in 2013. He said it was Garner's July 2014 death which led the NYPD officer Daniel Pantaleo's expulsion from the force that compelled him to become a full-time activist. After his death, we marched. He wrote an opinion piece for USA Today in 2019. When a grand jury decided to not indict Officer Daniel Pantaleo, we marched. For the countless other black men and women who have died at the hands of police and have received no justice, mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, we have marched. We still march and we still see no justice. Now, the question remains, is this a person who actually went through his own political journey and became radicalized because he saw that there was no solutions to police brutality? Or is this a person who set up a fake charity that was targeted by the IRS for being a fake charity and not a real 501c3 in an effort to fill his own personal coffers, and is routinely known to say, explosive, incendiary things with an effort to get this kind of media coverage that obviously right-wing newspapers are very excited to use to present all black activists as like violent people with no interest in real solutions whatsoever. That's it. His rhetoric has grown increasingly incendiary. If this country doesn't give us what we want, then we'll burn down the system and replace it, said Newsom in a Fox News interview last year. All right? And I could be speaking figuratively. I could be speaking literally. It's a matter of interpretation. Newsom, who has referred to the U.S. government as terrorists, managed to temporarily shut down the George Washington Bridge last year, rallying 100 demonstrators to protest police violence. Unless he's a Fed, there's a chance he saw himself as a genuine activist and justified the grifting behavior to himself. Yeah. He called himself a grassroots organizer, has rallied against vaccine mandates, which he has labeled racist. And notes on his website that his organization was the first group in New York City to endorse Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Yeah, we have the press conference that we're awaiting on for the shooter in the United Healthcare CEO shooting. Do you guys now understand Hey, do you now understand why my immediate reaction to that guy, knowing his background, knowing what he had done before, like this protest where he planned at a New York restaurant, claiming that vaccine mandates were racist? Do you understand why I immediately said, oh, I know who this person is. I know what he does. And some of you still very clearly were so motivated to jump on board. Sometimes people can say things that you agree with, okay? Sometimes people can say things you agree with. Maybe you're emotional. Maybe you're passionate, okay? And they say shit that you might immediately agree with. Just because someone is saying those things should not immediately cause you to go, no, this guy is woke and you're actually stupid and maybe secretly a white supremacist for not agreeing with his message, okay? There's a difference. There are plenty of people who say radical things or represent a radical, dare I say, revolutionary politics that I actually appreciate, okay, and defend regularly. Then there are people who engage in reactionary and, dare I say, ridiculous statements. Okay? That's why he is so, he's so quick to say this stuff in front of fucking Fox News and mainstream media.
Upset, angry, hurt. Over and over again, we keep coming to the system, asking the system to let us know that our lives have value.
Just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same?
That was a lawyer for Jordan Neely's family, followed by a founder of Black Lives Matter New York. Breaking today, a jury has found retired Marine Daniel Penny not guilty of negligent homicide in the death of Neely on a New York City subway last year. Judge Jeanine Pirro has jumped in the chair for us to react, co-host of The Five. Judge, welcome. You have been on every minute of this trial. Yeah. What are your initial thoughts and reaction?
Well, my initial thoughts were when they said that they had a verdict, I said, oh my gosh, this is...
Altoona wept. Thank you for the 5 community to give the subs. I thought it was Tacoma that wept, but I think Altoona wept today.
Too soon. They were conflicted on the man, too. They couldn't reach an agreement. And then all of a sudden, I find out it was not guilty, which tells me that, whatever questions they had on Friday, they resolved. And look, New York needed this and America needed this. People need to be able, in a society where we readily admit that we don't have the police that we need, that they've been defunded, they are not everywhere, they're certainly not in the subway. And if someone comes in the subway.
Okay. That's how you know Jeanine Pirro is so rich that despite the fact that she lives in New York, she has never taken the goddamn subway. The fuck do you mean the police are nowhere near at the subway? Like, obviously the idea that they are defunded is ridiculous, okay? Just the most ridiculous. But somehow of New York and is a part of your life every day, okay? Regardless of whether they're doing their job or not, doesn't matter. They're there. The mayor is a fucking cop, but now it's not enough. You know who else needs to be a cop? Random people that are also commuting alongside you. We need them to be cops too. Because that's what this is. Daniel Penny became a cop. He was deputized on the spot the moment that he fucking started choke slamming and started the process of murdering Jordan Neely. He became a cop in that moment. And that's what she wants. She's like, no, it's not enough that we have a mayor that's a cop. We have a standing military that's like, there's cops at every corner. You have to also become a cop. Every single American must become deputized and become a cop in the moment where they feel like there's a crime that might be occurring. Oh. I just got a full page Twitch warning. What do you mean? I assume Fox News was filmed and broadcasted from Florida. Is that not true? No. They do have Florida vibes, but they are definitely in New York City.
And says, I'm going to kill an MF for today, and I don't care if I go to jail for the rest of my life. And people are so petrified that they feel like they're going to pass out, or they hide their head, or a woman takes a carriage to bring her baby closer to her. You hope that you've got Danny Penny on that subway car to protect you. And, you know, I'm really outraged at these people who are saying, we need someone back. How about we do some vigilantism? You know what? Where were you when Jordan Neely was on the list of 50 of the most needy, homeless, and mentally ill people in New York City, a city of 8 million people? This guy had open warrants for assaulting people on the subway. He had 42 arrests in 7 years. Where were you? And let's not kid ourselves. The guy was 30 years old. He was 6'2". He was taller than Danny Penny. He was crouched, threatening to kill on a moving, locked subway car underground. What are you supposed to do? Just let him attack people? Yeah. And in the end, Danny Penny did not believe that he had used deadly physical force. He held him until the police came.
I think, like, well, first of all, I mean, he died. So what? Like, that's the part that's like really frustrating. And yes, as I said before, a lot of his arrests stem from subway fraud, which is literally just fare evasion. So that's why 42 plus is like ridiculous. There are some assaults in there too, but I like that she turned back at the Hawk guy, okay, and was like, "Where were you when Jordan Neely was scaring people? Like, you should do vigilante justice to him yourself." Again, not the solution to the problem at all. Okay. Oh my God. Yeah, he just held him. He just held his hand and he just fucking seemed to die. Is a wild way to look at this.
Perhaps that's why this is so important. This is a Black Lives Matter activist slamming the white jury in this Penny case, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
Forgive me for being jaded and cynical, but once we saw those non-white jurors, we knew that this case was over. Luckily for Daniel Penny, his skin was not like Jordan's. These wonderful white people, I hope they celebrate their Christmas while the Neely family is praying and asking God for comfort.
You know, I'll tell you, right off the bat, what she said 9, I mean, there were black, there were Hispanics on the jury. But maybe the better question is, why did Danny Penny make a decision to protect the African Americans on that subway car, the Hispanics on the subway car? Why did they jump in to hold Jordan Neely down? Because they felt that he was a danger. She's got it backwards. It's about time that instead of denigrating a good Samaritan, we thank God and hope that there's a Danny Penny on a subway car when we're on it confronted with deadly physical force, imminent deadly physical force.
Yeah, I mean, at this.
I think what's crazy is the assumption that, like, that Jordan Neely was presenting imminent deadly physical force and not Daniel Penny, who literally did do the deadly physical force. Like, what is happening? Thank goodness the killer of a poor schizophrenic black man is free and the killer of a wealthy white death merchant is in custody. Yeah, it's interesting who gets to be a hero is right. David is right. We are so cooked. Yeah. Back in the day, Good Samaritans used to help old ladies cross the street. Now, Good Samaritans are the ones who are doing extrajudicial executions of mentally ill black homeless people. Good stuff. Good stuff overall. Wonderful stuff.
In this particular case, implications for how this will be handled in the future, especially in a very dangerous, crime-ridden New York City where people.
One of the most annoying aspects of any kind of commentary that I engage in is when people immediately misunderstand my position, especially on this issue, where people will come to me and say, Hasan, you don't think black people can do any wrong. Oh, you think that black people should be able to get, a free slate to do crimes or whatever, which is immediately racist as fuck. Okay. You're just a ridiculous person. I want solutions. I want real solutions, long-lasting solutions. I don't want the solution to be deputizing random people that are going to murk poor people for the crime of having a psychotic break, a psychotic episode. Many of you do not think that you or a loved one would ever find themselves in that position, which is why you're so comfortable with this attitude where you're like, none of my loved ones were ever going to have a fucking mental health episode. I promise you, if Daniel Penny choke slammed and killed your immediate relative that might be exhibiting like a mental health problem, okay, you would not have this attitude. It's ridiculous. Only a racist would put those words in your mouth. Yes, it is racist people. It is LSF commenters. They literally say this. I remember them saying this when I was talking about the Kai Cenat stuff with the PlayStation 5. They literally would. So many people's open commentary in this process was, Hasan just will never criticize a black person. Okay? Like that isn't real political commentary. You're just a fucking white supremacist. You know what I mean? Anyway, I don't care that like self-defense law and defense of others law is pretty cool crud, even if the person you're afraid of doesn't actually intend to harm you. All that matters is you're in fear, and that fear could be considered reasonable under circumstances. See Trayvon Martin. It's really, really shitty and has massive racial undertones because obviously, as a lot of white people have that implicit racial bias. Exactly. Not just white people. Everybody has that implicit racial bias. Black people even have it. Black people have internalized white supremacist bias as well. It is a white supremacist society after all. So that is a very clear-cut outcome that in that circumstance, black people are disproportionately going to be punished by this. Or at least like the people that kill them are going to disproportionately get away with the crime. Can I just say something that is never brought up in any circumstance? As a brown woman, I feel exponentially less safe in the presence of white men than I do with any other demographic. And this constant emphasis that white men are these patriarchal protectors doing this violence out of their need to be patriarchs is mind-boggling to me. Yeah, except in a circumstance where you, as a brown woman, engage in an act of self-defense against a white man, okay, you would not have this same exact fucking process. You would go to jail. 100%. And all those fucking same people that are like demanding Daniel Penny be free and hailing him as a champion would literally say, if you don't go to jail, that's evidence further. That's further evidence that like feminism is alive and well in the criminal justice system and that this is an act of misandry. Once again, anti-male sentiment is completely out of control. Black victims of people who plead self-defense are less likely to see justice. Yes. Not guilty by jury. You are not the jury. Just move on. You're right. I should never do political commentary on any given issue unless I'm directly involved in the legal process. That's cool. I'm done now. Going forward, this is no longer a political commentary channel. Thank you for that brilliant insight, my good friend.
People are very scared to get on those train cars.
Well, do you remember they had AR-15s? They had the National Guard down there.
Absolutely.
Dangerous.
Still see it every day when some of us go down there.